Okay. I'm Miro Kaz.
I'm the real Tom Rose.
And you're watching the MBA Show Bonus Content.
Bonus content!
So in our regular episode, our tax day edition, we talked about what the qualifications are for you to be able to deduct education expenses, specifically your MBA. And you remember there's a 4-point test. You can't need it to qualify to perform the job you want to do, like doctors or lawyers. Not allowed. You can't be career switching. You got to be continuing on the career that you were in.
You need to be able to answer yes to one of the two following questions. It needs to be required by your employer, or it needs to be required in doing your work.
So this is sort of like if you need it to keep your job, and your employer won't pay for it, then the government will let you write off that education.
Yep.
And finally, you need to be continuing your career or trade while in school.
Right.
So part-time MBA is clear. But full-time MBAs, what you might not know is that actually a full-time MBA in gaps of up to several years have been allowed by the IRS as still gaps in your trade or work.
Okay, and so I think one of the things that would be very useful to many MBAs out there, because you want to take this deduction, it's worth tons of money, is for us to go through those 4 criteria and talk about actually how they play out.
Bring it on. What's our first criteria?
All right, the first criteria is, do you need your degree to qualify to perform the job you want to do? It feels to me like the answer is yes.
And I would
because you feel like you need an MBA to get like a consulting job or something.
But then let us remember the MBA doesn't qualify you to do anything.
So it turns out it's pretty much useless.
Consulting, banking, if there's even one partner at your consulting or banking firm that's not an MBA, it's like that's meant to exclude people where it's a legal requirement.
Right, so like doctors, for example, clearly can't satisfy this because it's required by law.
But if you don't need that MBA, you're legit. Okay,
so for MBAs, you pretty much qualify. Criteria 1. Okay, the second criteria, are you career switching? And so the correct answer here is no.
The deductible answer. There are no right or wrong answers. There's just legal and illegal answers about making the deduction. So the deductible answer is yes. And that's where you really want to look at.
No, the deductible answer is no.
The deductible answer is no. Sorry, you do not want to be career switching. You want to be continuing on your skills or trade.
And again, I feel like for most MBAs, it feels like the answer is yes, because a lot of MBAs are career switchers.
So the really important test here is, are you continuing those skills and how you think about what your trade is?
So we joked about it in the episode, but so you took the deduction.
I did.
And I feel like you're a career switcher on the surface, but tell me why you're not a career switcher.
Because the skills that I used in my prior job, I mean, we're talking about the same skills. I'm not going from doing a hardcore engineering job into a sales job. Though even that, if it were engineering, sales are in the same industry, I think you could argue. But for me, I'm staying in the same industry of online technologies. I'm using the same skill set. And I really came to my MBA program to develop and enhance those set of skills.
Right, so the question I guess comes down to how you define your career. So it could be, maybe you went from pharma to consulting, but if you were doing sales and sales in both of those, pharma sales, consulting sales, maybe that's the same career. And this is a bit of a gray area, which brings us to one of our main pieces of advice, which is hire a tax professional to help you answer these questions.
Yeah. Let's hit the fourth one, then we'll talk a little bit more about that. So the first one is, are you continuing your trade or profession? So carrying on with it while you're in school.
Right.
And this is one.
The deductible answer is
answer is yes. Okay. And this really speaks to how the law, sort of first conceived about people who are getting ongoing education to really help improve their lot in life, advance them in their career.
Right. So if you're part-time, it's clear that you satisfy this criteria. If you're working while you definitely satisfy it. But based on some of the rulings, some of the articles we've been reading, it seems like a lot of people who are doing full-time MBAs are also qualifying for this. And why is that?
Well, think about it. Like if a professor takes a 9-month sabbatical, are they still a professor?
So you're saying a leave of absence counts as continuing your career?
I mean, you're still a professor. So just because you're not working every single day being paid for it, doesn't mean you're not continuing your trade. Right. And there's quick things that you can do to help signal this and are good advice anyways. Get an internship during the summer.
Right, and if it's in the same career, that's a
same
plus.
Field, that's a great plus. Write a blog about the field that you want to go into. Great advice anyways.
You should probably just do that anyway, right?
Do the things that demonstrate, like you're in an MBA to help advance your career. Do the things that show that you're helping to do that.
Okay, and then there was a 2-parter, and you need to be able to answer yes to one of these 2 questions. Is it required by your employer? or does it improve skills required in doing your work?
And what this is really just about, like we said, is the yoga classes.
And you want the answer to be yes,
Yes.
to one of those two. Okay.
And it's just, you can't be writing off yoga classes. Like,
Right.
you want to be writing off things that, and education expenses that are related to advancing you professionally.
Yeah.
And this is also a deduction. The other part of that is designed for, if your employer says, if you want to keep your job, you need these skills.
Right.
And the employer's not going to pay for it, the government wants to make it easier for those people to get work.
So if I may, if I combine rules 1 and 3, basically what you're saying is, in order to deduct this, what you want is for your MBA to be required by your employer, but not by the law.
You want it to enhance your current career without being a requirement to proceed.
Right, okay.
Yeah. So if you do qualify, we could be talking about a lot of money here. But that has a lot to do with how much money you made that year.
Yeah.
So if you took an unpaid internship over the summer and you made no money and you paid tuition, you don't owe any taxes.
Right, so let's go through a quick framework to decide how to implement this. First step, figure out roughly if you're eligible. We just walked through that.
Yep.
And then you're addressing second step now, decide if it's even worth it. Because if you don't have any taxes, liability, then just
If you don't have to pay any taxes. And
don't deduct weird things if you don't have any tax liability.
And do remember that just because you're not going to owe any taxes or even you have a refund coming to you, doesn't mean you don't have a tax liability.
Right.
If all your taxes got deducted from your paycheck, you just paid those taxes already. You can still deduct this. So,
Yeah, so I guess the standard that I would use is, did you make any money?
Yeah.
If so, you have a tax liability.
Yes. So did you take this year?
I did not take this year.
And why not?
The reason why I did not, well, I basically ruled it out because of this point. I decided I'm not going to have a tax liability this year. I'm paying all this tuition, blah, blah, blah. I'm not going to have a tax liability, so why even bother?
Because you were planning to be a lazy good for nothing and not do anything over the summer?
Yeah, and then despite my best intentions,
Sweet.
I got a high-paying internship.
High-paying internship.
Suddenly I had all this.
Let's take it down a notch. You got a paying internship.
Well, I got a lot more money than I was expecting. Let's put it that way. Suddenly I have this tax liability that I was completely unprepared for. And not only that, but I was paid as a contractor. So I have all this income, and I haven't paid any taxes on it yet. Now it's due all at the end.
Although whether you've paid now or not, I mean, the issue is that, and if you're as a contractor, you have to pay both halves of Social Security. So you got this big tax bill coming.
I didn't even know that, and that explains part of that. So
you didn't know that?
No, I did not know that.
Yeah, no. So if you're an independent contractor and they don't so when they withhold, they take out partially your tax. So they take out 7% for your Social Security and 7% the company pays to the government.
So even if they pay you as a contractor, the full both halves of that still need to be paid, and the company doesn't pay any of it.
Exactly.
So you pay both halves.
That's why contractors
that's really
often get
excellent.
premium. That's why your tax bill is so
excellent.
big.
Well, fantastic. I'm glad I'm an MBA.
We're not tax professionals. If that wasn't
Did
clear
we say that
already,
before?
we're not tax professionals. And apparently you shouldn't be wary of tax advice from this one who doesn't even understand his liability. Okay,
Moving on.
So you've decided it's good, and you got a big contractor job. So you could potentially save a lot of money with this deduction.
Yeah.
What's next?
Hire a tax accountant.
Hire a tax accountant. Now, so even if so you should only take this if it's legal, and a tax accountant can help you.
Decide if it's legal. But
more,
this is weird enough that you should basically get an accountant.
And the reason for that is that it could trigger an audit risk. So even if it's all legal, the government pays attention to this deduction.
Yeah, even if it's legal, you still don't want to get audited.
And your odds of being audited, if you take this, are much higher.
Right.
Having an accountant's going to make sure it's legal, and if you do get audited by the government, your accountant has to go to bat for you to defend this choice, and it's worth the peace of mind, especially figure an accountant's going to cost you $500 at the most.
If this is going to save you $2,000, then definitely worth it.
Well worth it.
Okay, so and if you are going to hire an accountant, you want to get the right accountant.
Yeah.
Okay, so you don't want to just wander into H&R Block and ask about your MBA deductibility requirements. They're not going to know anything about that.
Yeah.
So what you really want is somebody who has experience deducting this exact thing.
And inevitably, so for instance in Boston, I use Louis Weinstein at Generation Tax, who's actually been a source for a lot of this information. It's great. And is basically the guy for deducting your MBA education.
And what I would suspect is that at MBA programs across the country, there's typically going to be 1 or 2 people that really do all of these deductions for the people at your school. So ask around and find that one person.
Yeah, especially
and go to them.
People who graduated like the year before, or often they'll do seminars around campus that you'll know about. Like that's usually the guy.
Which brings me to my 5th step. Profit!
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 Ah.
Profit! I don't think this is actually profit.
No, so this is very important. This is
don't
not
think
profit. This is a deductible expense for the IRA.
Oh, it sure feels like profit, though.
Don't sue us. Anyways, I'm Miro Kaz.
I'm the real Tom Rose, and you've been watching the MBA Show. Bonus content.